My name is Rebecca Belding, and I work with new collections for the museum's archives. Kurt Lewin's collection was one of the first collections that I worked with when I came to the museum in 2004. Kurt's collection is particularly interesting because it is so thorough. We have a lot of material about his father, who was the chief progressive rabbi of the Jewish community of Lvov. And then we go into Kurt's wartime papers, and it's really rare that someone was able to collect papers for their entire experience. Usually if someone goes into hiding, they have to destroy their old papers. Kurt managed to keep his, so we have papers of his as Kurt Lewin and papers of his when he was in hiding. When the war began, Kurt and his family were living in Lvov, which was a city in southern Poland. Immediately before the war began in September 1939, the Nazis and the Soviet Union made a deal to split up Poland. So when the Germans invaded Poland on September 1st, 1939, they invaded from the west and the Soviet Union invaded from the east. And Lvov was in the part of the country that was controlled by the Soviet Union. On June 22nd, 1941, the Germans broke the deal that they had made with the Soviet Union and invaded the Soviet territory of Poland. Lvov becomes chaotic. The Germans are moving in, the Soviets are moving out, they're clashing in the streets, and Kurt's father, Dr. Yeheskel Lewin, the chief progressive rabbi in Lvov, was arrested almost immediately. Right before his arrest, he had gone to a friend of his, the Metropolitan Andrew Sheptytsky, the head of the Greek Catholic Church in Lvov, and asked for assistance. On the way home, he was arrested and put in prison and was killed very soon after. The relationship that he had with Metropolitan Sheptytsky became really important in saving Kurt and his brother Nathan. After Rabbi Lewin was arrested and killed, Kurt was really the man of the house. He was living with his stepmother and his two younger brothers, both of whom are much younger than he was. Life in Lvov was not going to be getting any better. They had a family home in Ravaruska outside of Lvov, and so Kurt went there to find work to try to set up a way to bring his family out and maybe keep them safe in the countryside. As a Jew, he could not travel freely, so every time he wanted to go between Lvov and Ravaruska, he had to obtain a pass from the Germans. Normally, these passes identified him as Jewish in the first line, so it would say, Der Jude Kurt Lewin, the Jew Kurt Lewin, requests to travel from this place to this place on this day. If he was caught without his pass, or if his pass had the wrong day on it, he could be arrested. Kurt is traveling back and forth between Ravaruska and Lvov for about a year. He does find work in Ravaruska, but notices that life in the countryside in Poland isn't any better than life in the cities in Poland. He's seeing people being rounded up. They're being taken to the Belzhytz extermination camp. Kurt learns enough about Belzhytz to worry that his mother and his younger brothers might get on a train and be sent there. In September 1942, he returns to Lvov to warn them not to get on any trains because he fears that if they were deported, they would be immediately killed. When Kurt returns to Lvov, he finds that the situation is really quite dire. He goes to the Metropolitan Andrew Sheptytsky, his father's old friend, and says, "Is there anything you can do for my family?" The Metropolitan manages to arrange for Kurt and his younger brother Nathan to go into hiding. The Metropolitan's brother was the head of a monastic order called the Studites, which was a Greek Catholic order of monks. Clement was in charge of these monasteries in and around Lvov, and Clement was able to arrange for Nathan and Kurt to go into hiding in the monasteries, Nathan as an orphan and Kurt as a novice monk. This was not only a risk for them, it was a risk for the entire Studite community hiding them. If they were found to be hiding Jews in the monasteries, and they hid more people than just Kurt and Nathan, they hid others as well, the entire community would be arrested, deported, and most likely killed. To go into hiding as a monk, you can't just walk in and say, "I'm a monk." You had to have identity papers for everything, otherwise you risked arrest. Immediately, they had to make false identification papers for Kurt as a novice monk. Clement actually hand-forged this document, which is Kurt's baptismal certificate. He also couldn't go as Kurt Lewin. That would be too obvious a Jewish name, so he was given the name Roman Paul Mitka. This has Roman Paul Mitka was baptized. It has the same birth date that Kurt had, and it's a notarized baptismal certificate within the Greek Catholic Church. If you look at the photographs between some of Kurt's earlier identification papers and his identification papers as Roman Mitka, you can see him move from identity to identity, not just through the documents, but through the photographs as well. In the summer of 1944, the Soviet Union is able to invade Poland from the east. So Kurt Lewin decides that he would like to join this liberating army and joins a Polish unit attached to the Soviet army. And so he has to reestablish himself as Kurt Lewin. So this document actually states that this man, Roman Matkowski or Roman Mitka, born on February 28, 1925, is also Kurt Lewin, son of Dr. Jehesko Lewin, born on the same day. It says that he took this false identity during the war in order to save his own life. The museum's mission to rescue the evidence has never been as critical as it is right now. It's really important that we work with survivors to learn what's behind the documents that they give us. It's difficult to figure out experiences just based on the documentary evidence. Having Kurt there to tell us this is what was happening when I was using this document is really crucial.